everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, and hello to our friends on Business Talk Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and this is the home of Talking Heads. Today's show is the business talk show, the only one. There's no need for any other. Why? Because we have an incredible co-host, Mr. CINI. I could not do the show without him, and we have an amazing guest. Let's bring out Mr. CINI first. Hello.
Dr. JACALYN, it's so nice to see you.
So nice to see you too. It's always a day I look forward to, Wednesday, when I get to see you, and soon we'll be able to hear your voice on our intro, which is so exciting. I can't wait.
That's a pretty horrifying thought, but I'm glad you like my voice. That's at least one person. So
you have a great voice. You got a voice for television. You got a face for television, a voice for, I don't know, whatever it is. You got it all going on there. So
it's just a lot of fun. I'm so glad you invite me along on this journey. It's great to be here. And I'm really anxious to start talking with Cindy Wahler because we're in the middle of this thing called the Great Resignation, which is a huge segment of the workforce deciding all of a sudden spontaneously they don't want their jobs anymore. They want to move to start their own company or get a new job. And when you ask people why they're leaving, the top three answers always feature somewhere in the top three, I hate my boss. And so we have a leadership crisis in this country, a really kind of scary leadership crisis. And what I like about what Cindy does is that she helps companies overcome that by turning their managers into leaders. Leadership development is a kind of a sweet spot for her. And if we've ever needed it, now's the time.
Absolutely. So we're going to get some elevation of our knowledge on leadership development. And Al, I have to say, I'm glad I got out before this Great Resignation started, because I just got out last year myself.
you were ahead of the curve. I got kicked out before this Great Resignation started. So yeah, I'm happy about that too.
And look at you now, right? So
I know. Look at this. This is so much fun. So much more fun.
So, people are afraid to go out on their own in a lot of cases, because I know people today who would love to leave and they just can't do it. It's the money, it's the benefits, it's, what if I fail? And it just goes to show you that you can leave and you'll be doing just fine.
You actually can. I mean, you've got to have enough of a runway. You can't just quit and wonder where your next meal's coming from. So you need to do a little prep for it. But generally, with about 8 to 12 months worth of advance notice, you can pull together a program that makes it possible for you to meet your obligations and build a business. And there are people out there looking for help in a variety of ways, and awful lot of people out there who can provide that help on a contract basis. They're just, as you said, afraid for some reason of this wonderful opportunity that could be ahead of them that they kind of shy away from.
Exactly. And I think also, if you have a plan, like for me, I worked with a coach and I came up with a plan, a 9-month plan with options A, B, and C, and I got between B and C. It was starting to go, but then things started to fall into place, and I'm very grateful. So it's all good. Before we bring Cindy out, I'm going to spotlight you, and I want you to share about what's going on at BCAT. Tell our viewers and listeners, what is BCAT and what are you doing?
I'm glad you're asking me, because I recently read an article, and everybody's familiar with the fact that Blue Origins, which is Jeff Bezos' rocket company, recently sent William Shatner into space and brought him back. I mean, I thought that was kind of an extra added bonus. All right, there, they could have left him there. But Blue Origin shot William Shatner into space, and at the same time that was going on, there was another headline for Blue Origin. The toxic culture of Blue Origin is causing their best people to leave in droves. So this company that launched William Shatner into space is having trouble keeping talent and keeping their people, because their culture is, and I can tell you what's wrong with it. I know what's wrong with it. They're more focused on putting stars in space than they are on reaching for the stars that are already there. And any organization that loses sight of its purpose and becomes just about PR and just about flashy headlines and just about publicity stunts will never be able to attract and retain the kind of people that they need to really become successful. And Blue Origins is just one particular case that I happen to have read a headline about. There are many companies out there. And what we do with the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit is help companies reconnect with their purpose. And when you take your leaders and make them purpose-oriented, shepherds of a purpose, people who lead others to a purpose. When you do that, those managers become leaders, they become more effective, they become mentors, they become coaches, and that's how you keep your best people.
Oh my gosh, I'm so in alignment with what you're saying. Are you running for office anytime soon? Because I want to vote for you, whatever it is you're going to be doing.
Yeah, well, it takes more than one vote, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, without further ado, let's bring on our wonderful guest who's joining us from Toronto. It's Dr. Cindy Wahler, leadership development expert. Hi, Cindy.
Cindy! Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm stoked to be here, excited to be here, and very looking forward to our program today. So thank you.
Oh, did I get anything wrong, Cindy? Is that pretty much what's going on?
You actually hit the nail on the head, Alan. So the research and the data shows that 40% of the employee population in any and all industry sectors, whether it's finance, insurance, biotech, pharma, energy, oil, gas, and many others, has a serious retention problem. So since COVID, 40% of the population is leaving the organization. And as you suggested, both of you, it is about a number of things. It's a time that employees have had to reflect. Is this the job that they want? Are they feeling valued? It may be that they're burnt out from the actual technical skills they have. It may be, as you suggested, they're not too aligned with their boss, whether it's a value set or leadership style, and they're exhausted. And it's an opportunity to do something very different. And as you suggest as well, that if organizations don't pay attention to this, because we are at a critical point in talent, in succession, in retention, in employee engagement, if employers don't pay attention to this, then there's going to be a continued exit through the front door, and where they're going to lose, as you say, the stars and their very best talent. And at the end of the day, no matter how great your business plan is, your strategic plan, then that is going to affect the brand, the profitability of the company, the growth of the company, and its sustainability. You know, when I ask executives what it is they see as a major goal of their company, they will say to me, well, to be the most profitable ever. And I'll say to them, I don't think that's the right answer. The right answer is it should be to stay in business forever. And if you have that as your goal, then you are concerned about the culture and employees' well-being.
No, I mean, there's an awful lot in what you said, and hidden. Something I want to unpack in what you've just said, Cindy, is the promise that you make to a company when they call you and ask for your help. Who is it that calls you? What are they typically experiencing when they do? And what is it you do to help them solve that problem?
Absolutely. So it may be very different depending on where that leader is, what the company wants to achieve. But it may be a number of different streams. So it may be for a new leader who is joining the company, and they want to ensure that that individual is onboarded well, that they integrate within the culture, because they may be coming, of course, from a different company with a very different culture. And the definition of collaboration or partnering may be one thing in one company and something else in the other. They also are wanting to ensure that that employee or that leader is successful by developing the appropriate partnerships, stakeholdering, and as well, there may be challenges around how do they inspire a team, how do they assess talent. So I would say there's two broad buckets that I work with, or what I would call emerging leaders, high potentials, so new on a fast track to be successful, and then those very seasoned leaders who in fact need to learn how to be more agile, pivot, and it is that saying about what got you here is not going to get you there, and so they need that coaching and that guidance and the stewardship around how to adapt to a new frontier or a new mandate or different scope.
Wow. So
thank you.
Dr. JACALYN, I know, have you ever worked for a bad manager?
Yes, I've worked for seriously flawed executives yes, that's a whole other story. I have a question for Cindy, because you did touch on this. Cindy, I spent about 18 years of my career that I retired from last year helping executives really motivate their workforce through employee recognition programs or sales incentive programs. And I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on them? Are they still viable today? Do they make a difference anymore with after the pandemic and flexible work styles? Do people want to have points-based programs and sales incentive trips? What are your thoughts?
Great question. And so really what it's about is understanding what drives each employee. So everybody wants to feel rewarded. We all need to be recognized. We need to feel that we're adding value. But what might be important to you is it may be that a reward and recognition or points, or maybe it's verbal recognition for Al, or maybe it's having a half day off or a day off. So what great leaders do is they talk to each employee and they ask them, what is it that you need that's going to make you feel special, valued, that you are really achieving things and that we recognize that? And let us figure out how best to recognize you based on what you need, as opposed to having a generic program that may not be as important to me. Maybe I want to be placed on a challenging project, or maybe I want to be put on a committee, or maybe I'm thinking about having a rotation. So those things would be rewarding to me as opposed to necessarily points or a gift card or a gift certificate. So it's important to understand that.
You know, Cindy, you're talking about that, and I'm starting to think about all the experiences I've had. I know Dr. JACALYN's had them too, with people who became managers by some miracle, and without ever really learning how to do the job. What you're espousing is that a leader of people should get to know the people on a bespoke, individual, custom basis, and learn what it is that motivates each of them individually. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a thing. But a lot of the managers, I just want to add to that, a lot of the managers that I've worked with and a lot that I've met come in through a private entrance, sneak into their office, close their doors, stay inaccessible all day, and then sneak out at the end of the day and do everything they can to avoid the people that work for them.
There's no shortage of that. And I'm smiling because, in fact, you're right. There are individuals, employees who get promoted, rewarded by then moving from being an individual contributor to being a leader of people. And how they got there may be based on different things. It may be that, in fact, they were great at executing, they were great at meeting their deliverables, coming in on time, under budget, and rewarded for that. But they don't necessarily know or have an interest in how to lead people. And so one of the things that I'm constantly being asked to coach on is that when somebody shows up with their team, whether it's formal presentations that they're giving or whether it's working on the ground with their team, is that if you have one message, and as you're talking about the need to be bespoke, one message or one way of motivating people, you have to remember that that might be the way that you want to be motivated, that you want to be spoken to in a transactional, direct way, but maybe the person next to you needs to feel that they understand what it is that's important to them or why this relates to the strategic plan. And so for each and every person, yes, you do. And I'm often asked by leaders, well, Cindy, how many leadership styles do I need? And I'll say, as many as the people that you actually direct, or as many as the people that you actually work with in partnership, because we all have different drivers and you need to be able to adapt to that. If you're, thinking about what is the most crucial leadership skill that's required, I think the direction that the both of you are going is really important, which is the ability to be agile, the ability to pivot. So there's a crisis that happens, whether it's within the economy, whether it's within the environment, whether it's within the organization, whether it's different personalities, then that leader needs to be able to pause, adjust, and adapt. And if they can't do that, and as you suggest, they're behind closed doors or exit through a back entrance, then they are missing in action and they're not going to inspire trust or credibility or followership or loyalty.
That's solid advice.
Yeah, and to your point, at least in my experience, I found that it sort of ripples through the whole organization. That you think that people don't notice that you're not paying attention and you're sneaking out, but everybody's noticing it. I remember when I started my career, I worked for a major telecommunications company. I will not say which one, but I remember a senior executive came to Bala Cynwyd, Pennsylvania, to where our branch office was, and actually sat down with each of us. It was like shocking, unheard of. The person wanted to get to know me and understand where did I want to go in this company. And I stayed as long as that person was there. It was amazing because that person really left an impression. And it seems like from what I'm hearing being out of that is that it's not going on as much as it's needed.
It's that's a teachable moment too, because all the leaders that report to that leader really need to follow that model themselves. And I think where individual leaders at the top of the company might have the gift of being able to relate to other human beings, they often fall short of inspiring all the other leaders in the company from doing likewise. And that's where I think somebody like Cindy really makes a difference. And your program, Cindy, is for groups. I mean, it's a training program for leaders, and it's also individual one-on-one coaching.
Correct. I do team facilitation, group, and individual. And, I'll give you an example of what you were just talking to. I remember I had a client, and the feedback that he received from the team who gave it to me and as well as to him directly was that you don't really care about us. You don't spend any time with us. And he was crushed. He said, how is that possible? And I said, well, I'm on your premises often enough to know that there are things that you do that probably you may not be aware of. And so one of the things that you do is that you walk rapidly on the floor, you get out of the elevator bank, race to your office, and your team now decided that you're not approachable. And so he was hurt by that. And he said, well, how is that possible? And I said, because at each cubicle, at each office, you never stop to make any conversation with how's the new baby, how's the pet, how's your vacation, talk about the photos on their desk or how they're doing. And so people don't feel that you care versus JACALYN's example is sitting down with each and every one. You really do need to be a leader of the people. And if you're down in the trenches to the degree that you're showing that interest and that compassion, then it does build that attachment and that loyalty for sure. So it's also about paying attention to nonverbal behavior. I'll give you another example. One of the senior executives, again, their team said, we don't think that we have a forum to offer ideas. Our leader is asking us to be innovative, to be creative, yet when we offer up ideas, he doesn't seem to be listening, or it looks like he may be mad. And I said, well, what is it that he does? And so they said, well, every time we have an idea, he takes this chair, pushes it away from the table, and moves it against the wall. And so I went to my client and I said, here's the feedback. And he said, oh my goodness, I'm doing it for the opposite. I'm doing it because I want to reflect and I'm taking their input very seriously. I said, but do you realize, in fact, you're distancing yourself from your team and it seems like that you're upset with their content. So I'm going to chain you to the table unless you figure out a way to not to do that and, in fact, actually engage in the moment. So there are things that we do. I think that not all leaders are necessarily, don't come by things honestly. It's more about being self-aware and getting that feedback. And great leaders do intermittently tap into peers, colleagues, to get some just-in-time feedback. So we show up with the right intent, but how are we really impacting? And sometimes it's hard for us to see ourselves.
That was a really good example because you can almost imagine this person and doing what they're doing and how you would feel if someone did that to you. So
absolutely,
it's lucky.
I would feel rejected.
I've had it done to me, so I know how that feels, and it's not a good feeling at all. And it's the leader, in most cases, the person has a gift, they're just hiding it. So all it takes, everybody has the ability to relate to other people. They just don't it's like a muscle they don't use, and it kind of atrophies, especially over time, which is a shame. And I also want to point out something that millennials are teaching us, because we like to think as baby boomers, as older people, maybe more senior people, we like to think we know everything, and that the kids are running riot and driving us all crazy, and they need to get control of themselves, the way we did when we were growing up. But if you really listen to what millennials want, they're what all the old people have always wanted themselves throughout their entire lives. They want a life that includes work, not as a separate experience, but as integrated in everything about who they are. And to accomplish that, they don't want people to push them around. They want people to lift them up. And those are not hard skills to learn, especially if you got help from somebody like Cindy Wahler.
I agree. I always encourage reverse mentoring, because you're right, millennials have lots to teach us. And at the end of the day, I remember facilitating a team at a logistics company, and I went around to ask them, well, what is important to you? And you're spot on, Al. What they said was exactly what you said: to be heard, to be listened to have a point of view, and to be included. They don't need to be right. It's more about, have you vetted us? Because if you truly believe in diversity and inclusion, then you should be, as a leader, really taking a pulse of what it is we need, our views, our thoughts, our perspective, and then coming up with a robust solution or decision making that help frame your strategy or help frame next steps, because you've had a point of view that's other than your own, but it is about really the collective.
And, to your point too, Cindy, I think that's not just about the people that run the company and own the company. That's true all the way down to the people who mop the floors and answer the phones.
Absolutely. Everyone has a place, and everyone is making a contribution. And I'll tell you this, as you just reminded me of this story. So one of the companies that I work for, the senior executive, the CEO of the company, was a very approachable individual. But as you know, the more senior you are, it still is intimidating to the masses. But he tried hard to be approachable. He was in the elevator with a gentleman that had a mail cart with the mail that he was distributing. But because he's such a nice guy, he said to this individual with the mail cart, "So tell me what you do for us." And he said, "I actually expedite communication so you could make decisions faster."
Huh.
Wow.
Wow. And what was amazing was the CEO got off the elevator, said to his EA, to his admin, "Find this person. I want to know who this person is." And sure enough, it wasn't before long that this individual was promoted. You could argue to me, likely, very talented, would be promoted eventually, but the trajectory was much faster. And this was about how you really promote your own brand and the value that you bring. And so I would have said, most of us would have said, I deliver the mail. That's what I do. But instead he said, here's the value I have. And so also in terms of leadership, it's really important to think about what is your differentiator, and are you showing up in a way that adds value, as opposed to this is what your resume says that you do, or your role definition.
Right.
And that is a gem, Dr. Cindy Wahler.
Really
that is huge. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to take a break and hear from some of our sponsors. And Cindy, I'm wondering when we come back if you might be able to read from your book for us.
That's a possibility, for sure.
All right. So when we come back, we will be talking about 20 effective habits for mastery at work with Dr. Cindy Wahler, Mr. Al CINI. And we're going to be watching a clip. I've been running this a lot. I feel like it's very powerful. It's called the Earthshot Prize. I want to say thank you to Ian Pelham-Turner and Helena Shard for providing this. And actually, the prize was given out yesterday, the first. I think it's for 5 years they're giving out prizes. So we're going to watch that clip, and then we're going to hear from Mr. CINI's company, and then we'll be right back. So we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Ours is a world of wonder. Every day it reminds us of its beauty. It touches us, teaches us, and astounds us. But it also warns us that what we throw away does not go away. That higher temperatures mean a lot more than longer summers. That we can no longer take life as we know it for granted. We are at a unique stage in our history. Never before have we had such an awareness of what we are doing to the planet. And never before have we had the power to do something about that.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Oh, hello. Yes. Welcome back to USA Global TV, home of Talking Heads. And hello to our friends on Business Talk Radio. I also want to say hi to some of our friends who were at our Power of Listening seminar yesterday. I see on Facebook that you're watching, which is great. We have an amazing show for you today with Mr. Al CINI, and our fabulous guest is Dr. Cindy Wahler. And Dr. Cindy has written a book, 20 Effective Habits for Mastery at Work. You can purchase her book on Amazon. Dr. Cindy, what is this book all about?
So this is actually, I would say, a gift from my clients that over the years, 20 plus years in practice, doing leadership development, succession planning, it is what all my clients have taught me around the importance of leadership and what are the key attributes or skills that make great leaders. So this is what the book is about. It's practical, it's action-based with steps to take to work on various attributes that you want. And I could have probably had 100 plus skills, but I tried to narrow it down to the 20 most important skill sets.
Thank you. And while we have you on Spotlight, who's the target audience, the target reader for this book?
Well, just as we were talking about Dr. JACALYN at the very beginning of the show, this really appeals to all leaders because every single one of us can learn how to elevate our leadership, how to offer more value, how to influence people and our teams to a greater degree. So it could be for anyone in their career around how to enhance your effectiveness.
That is, I think that's a
Wonderful.
great point. And you're mentioning something that I think is really important, and our listening and viewing audience really needs to kind of wrap their heads around it. There is this notion of emergent leadership, exactly what you said, which is everybody has the ability to lead. What we need to do is create a climate where people feel safe enough and reinforced enough to be able to lead. And that story you told before the break about the person in the mailroom who said, I do what makes it possible for you to do what you do. And that's leadership by in another form. That's exactly what you're looking to have happen.
Absolutely. And so it does mean that for every one of us, we have to have courage. So you have to take risks around having a voice at the table. And again, I remember having another client organization where the executive, she was head of marketing, and she said, if people at my table don't speak up, I will conclude they have nothing to say. Now, that's a very harsh statement, but she's right. They have a seat at the table, they earned a seat at the table, and she wants to hear their views because that really adds to, again, more enriched solutions and better dialogue and more diversity. So it absolutely is about that. And one of the things that I talk about in my book that probably is a skill that is the most challenging for leaders of any place in the world, whether any industry sector or wherever they are in their career, has to do with self-promotion. And we think about that we're going to get rewarded because we're humble. Those are the right values to have. And it's not just about being humble. It's about what is it that you're really good at and how do you promote and profile that and how do you create visibility in that. And so again, I'll ground it in a practical example. Another one of my clients said they so very much wanted to work for this leader, but they didn't really know the leader. And they said, how am I going to connect with that leader? And I said, well, somebody you know knows somebody, and you'll get them to get you on their calendar. But more importantly, what are you going to do when you get there? And he said, well, I'm going to go through my career. I'm going to explain the various jobs that I had. And I said, well, you could do that. That's a traditional thing to do. But also what's really important, or instead of that, because he could read your resume, he knows where you've been, and he can figure that out quickly, is that why didn't you ask him what it is he's trying to solve for? What is his biggest pain point or challenge? Then align your skills with that challenge. Explain to him how you could help solve for that problem. Again, it's about being visible with what it is that you offer, feeling proud of that, and then showing where you could make a difference, as opposed to these are the projects that I've been on and these are the skills that I have. So that's how to differentiate yourself, and that is about, to me, self-promotion.
It sounds like it's almost like a marriage. It's like putting two pieces together so that they lock, instead of just giving information that's readily available for the leader to see.
Dr. JACALYN, there's a lot of insight in what you just said, because it's I think couples that are building something together are more likely to find the experience of being a couple rewarding. If all we're doing is keeping each other company, what we can all have in common is a goal that we're all working for together. Instead of just articulating what you're trying to get out of it, trying to find out what the other person is trying to get out of it, and seeing if you can't throw your shoulder behind that a little bit. I think that works in every relationship.
I agree with you.
I agree. Yes, I agree with both of you for sure, because it's what is the benefit to me, to you, and then to us together. And how do we complement each other? What skills do you bring, Al, that differs from what Dr. JACALYN brings? And then together, 1 + 1 = 10, not 2, because it is about that complement for sure.
Really good points. And something I want to share for our audience, which I think is really kind of interesting, is Dr. Cindy, you shared that example about the person who was delivering mail, but really, helping you deliver effective communication for the organization. So a very good family friend with no formal education started off for a major organization, corporation, in the mailroom, and ended up becoming president of a division with 2,500 people working for this person. And so you never know, folks. You never know.
Exactly. That's spot on. So yes, it does happen in real life for sure. Absolutely.
I'm thinking exactly along those lines of Mary Burra at GM, because she started on an assembly line, and the gift there was that they were able to recognize the fact that she was a standout. A lot of organizations are blind to that, but some of the best people that you've got start in some of the lowest positions you offer. And if you give them a little bit of room and make them feel safe, they can become the people that save your company.
Absolutely. And they understand what it means to be in the trenches, and they can relate to each and every employee because they were there themselves. They personally were there, so they could relate. Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, Dr. Cindy, I was going to ask you about that. There's a reality TV show called Undercover Boss, where, have you ever seen it? Where the executive actually goes undercover and does all these other jobs in the field that they've never done before, and they're literally shocked to find out that things are not working. But my question for you is, in terms of being an expert in leadership development, do you coach any of your clients on the fact that they should get to know all the different facets, the different business units, and how they operate?
Some of my so sophisticated client organizations actually, to your point, have rotational programs for that very reason, JACALYN. It is so that they can appreciate the work that's being done, and it's also part of their succession and their development. So the belief is, and the philosophy of these organizations, if you want to run this organization at the highest level, then you need to understand the various components, what it means operationally, tactically, and then strategically. And how will you be able to lead the company unless you actually can appreciate the very diverse components that go into making the company great or making the company profitable? So absolutely, it is important. And there are a couple clients right now who I'm doing individual coaching who are actually having coaching for that very reason. And they're doing rotations in different areas so that they then can be elevated to the next level. Because they understand what's going on operationally and not just on a strategic level.
I think that sounds so interesting too, to understand. My father was a new car dealer, and I remember he said you need to know every aspect of the business, because you need to know what people are doing with their time and what they're doing with your money, how the money's being spent. So you need to know everything. You need to know the service department, accounting, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really in agreement with that. And I know you have your book with you, and I would love for you to read something. So I'm going to spotlight you, and if you can just show us the cover and maybe give us an intro as to where you're taking us in.
There we go. So I am going to talk about, so there are 20 chapters, and the chapters vary from collaboration to pivoting to focusing, all important, but I thought I would just pick one paragraph, and it is what we're talking about, which is self-promotion. And so one of the things that my clients will often say to me, as I mentioned, is that I feel that it's unattractive or not appropriate for me to show off my work, and that I should get rewarded because I was taught values to be humble and to not necessarily showcase myself. And to me, the language of work and the premise behind work is that noisier people get rewarded. And so it is about having the courage to promote yourself. So one of the things that I say in the book, and I'll just read this brief paragraph, is self-promotion has traditionally had negative connotations. It can be seen as grandstanding or grabbing a front row seat. Moving down from the bleachers can be viewed as opportunistic. But what's actually wrong with being opportunistic? It helps if you believe in yourself, because you then create a profile. If you stay on the sidelines, you don't promote visibility. Please do not make the all too common mistake of thinking your work speaks for itself. Lots of people do good work. You assume it's why you're hired. You have the talent or skill set to do the job. That's your entry ticket. but you must boast in a humble way to get the attention you deserve. So what I like to call it is humble confidence. So it's having the right amount of ego to be able to be confident, to allow people to follow you, but also being open to say, I made a mistake, I failed, and I'm going to course correct because I have new information or different perspectives.
Got to get that
Thank
book.
you so much. The book is available on Amazon. It's 20 Effective Habits for Mastery at Work. As we close out this show, Dr. Cindy, I'm wondering if you can just touch on something you mentioned about failure. We talked at the beginning of the show about how people are concerned about leaving what they're doing because they don't want to fail, but yet failure is part of the journey, whether you are in a corporation or an organization or you're out on your own. What are your thoughts on that?
So I don't know one single human who's been successful all by themselves. So in order to be successful and to achieve, you have to fail, meaning that you are getting the best data, you're taking risks, but then when you fail, it's natural because you learn from that experience. You then say, okay, what are the new information around how I have to set up my business, or how I have to approach that difficult client, or how I have to engage in business development. And then by doing that, you learn. And by doing that, you're also open to new information and different perspectives. So I don't know a single person who's been successful who hasn't failed. It's because that allows us to get new data points and a new perspective that fine-tunes our solution, fine-tunes our problem solving, fine-tunes our decision making. And so if you don't fail, that means you're not a risk taker, you're likely not innovative, and you're not creative. And so then it's frustrating to understand why you don't get ahead. And it is because you haven't taken risks that engender some failure.
Very insightful.
Very insightful. Thank you. And I just want to share with our audience that since I left my corporate job and started this, I failed so many times. I hired the wrong people. I wasted money. I made the wrong decisions. And it is frustrating. You just keep going. And then all of a sudden doors open and you don't look back. You just take the knowledge and information of what you learned from that failure, and then you turn into another success in a different way.
Yeah,
That's my
Absolutely.
That's how we become overnight successes.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes many years to become an overnight success.
Sure does. It sure does. Dr. Cindy Wahler, we have to close out the show, but again, I want to spotlight you. And if you could share for people listening on the radio who can't read the banner, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and who would you like to contact you?
So the best way is basically on my website, so cindywahler.com. I'm also on LinkedIn at Cindy Wahler. I have an Instagram handle at CindyWahler1. And in terms of who would contact me, it's anybody at any level of their career that is at a decision-making point around what they want to do next, as you suggested at the beginning, as people are reflecting, or allowed one to be a better leader. What do they need to think about, and what skills do they need to have greater impact and be more successful as a leader?
Thank you so much. We would love to have you back. Will you come back again?
You bet. I'm hoping you ask me again. I've thoroughly enjoyed it and love being here with both of you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yes, I love your work and have a lot of respect for you. So thank you so much. And please go over to Amazon and purchase 20 Effective Habits for Mastery at Work, Dr. Cindy Wahler. Thank you again. We will see you on our show soon, hopefully.
Absolutely. It's a guarantee.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Bye. She was a fantastic guest.
She was. That was episode 63, which is incredible. And
yes.
And it was a great interview with a lot of really great takeaways. I hope our audience was listening and watching and paying attention, because you really can learn a lot from somebody with Cindy's experience.
And by the way, I'm just putting it out there. I was born in 1963. Whoa! And I wanted to ask you, when you were talking about the old people before, who were the old people you were talking about? You were saying about the boomers.
I was talking about all these people everywhere else.
I was like, is he talking about?
You know, as I was using the word old, I was realizing that's not the word you use. I know, I get that, but senior people, we have a bias. We feel like we've grown up and everybody else is still a kid, And that bias is something we need to overcome in order to be able to work with everybody.
It's very true. Very true.
That's how you stay young, by the way. Watch young people, hang out with young people. That's kind of a secret. So
it sure is. And I'd like to do that myself. I like to work out with young people. And then I see how strong I am. I'm like, yeah, old lady still rocking it.
I did that once, and I ended up not being able to walk for 3 weeks.
Oh, you're so funny. I want to spotlight you, and if you can tell people how to reach you and who should contact you.
Sure. We're looking to connect with the owners of businesses, managers of departments within larger companies, project managers. We have a program called the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit that we've shown repeatedly connects people with their purpose. And when you align your people with your purpose, we move the needle that moves all the needles. When you move that engagement needle and get people excited about something you're accomplishing and make them feel like they're part of something, every other key performance indicator in your company improves. Turnover goes down, profitability goes up, success goes up, achievement of goals rather than just tracking activities happens. And you know what I'm saying, that every business owner in the world deserves every day one positive, unexpected experience that their organization gives them as a gift, some idea that somebody gets or some suggestion somebody conceives. Everybody deserves that experience. We like to think that we build the kind of culture where that kind of thing happens more than once a day.
Thank you, Al. I appreciate that. And Al, right before we go, I just want to share with the audience, I had asked you if it's okay to share the news that you have joined our team of talking heads. And I'm very excited about this.
I am.
You're going to be a talking.
Tell us about that, because it's such a wonderful program. I think I'm excited to be a part of it. Maybe you can tell everybody how they can become a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. I will. So the Talking Heads is a presentation platform that we are rolling out in January. It is by invitation only, and it is to people who are experts in their field, like Mr. Al CINI, like Dr. Cindy Wahler. And so basically, you will have your own show. And each week, you will be the talking head. I will not be here. There will not be anyone commenting after you do your presentation. And you will be delivering content for all the areas in which you're an expert. So it'll be a half hour, and it will be on a weekly basis. And you will have the audience is yours.
You know, that's an exciting opportunity, not just for me. I'm excited about it, but awful lot of people out there know an awful lot and can help people with what they know. And here's an opportunity for them to get out there with that expertise.
Absolutely. And you have to have 5 years of experience. And we have certain marks that you have to have attained, like you have, and Dr. Cindy. I'll speak with her as well. So we're very excited as we roll out our new platform, USA Global TV. We'll have all new intros. We're going to have all backgrounds that are new and exciting. We have a fashion channel. We have a music and film channel. And we also have something that you and I are doing together for the first hour. We have the 2021 Holiday Reunion Show on January the 1st. And Al and I will be kicking off the first hour, and we will be inviting guests from the business show to join us, to drop in and say, hey, Happy New Year, everybody, and maybe give some words of wisdom for the upcoming year, and maybe some key learnings from this year.
I think it's a great, it'll be a great opportunity for people to share with everybody what their New Year's resolutions are. And we've talked with an awful lot of smart people in those 63 episodes we've done. And what they're planning for 2022 is something everybody can learn from. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And we're going to sign off now. Our next show is coming up. It's called Happy Seniors on the Go. So we look forward to, our guest is Mr. Philip Chan. So if you have the opportunity to stay and watch, we'd love to have you. Thanks again. Bye, Al. Bye, Dr. Cindy.
Thanks, Dr. JACALYN. Bye now.